so. I'm not too sure what to do.
It's just, you just scroll it down with it.
Just like this? Okay.
Yeah. Or you can use the mouse.
Right, that's good. That's good.
If it doesn't fit, just zoom out a little bit.
What did you do, man?
Oh, it won't zoom out. I think your one's
It should be alright.
full size.
That's good.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تبارك وتعالى وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إخواني وأخواتي في الله, it's a great pleasure to be in front of you guys today. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Hilal Tours, Umar, Tariq for giving me this opportunity. I'm tremendously appreciative, and I hope by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's best names and by His greatest attributes that I can deliver a very, very clear and also a concise presentation on Hajj. I'm sure you all know the type of Hajj that we will be performing is Hajj at-Tamattu'. Alright, and this is what the lecture is going to be based on today. So I'm not going to be speaking about Al-Ifrad, which is another type of Hajj that you can do, nor will I be speaking about Al-Qarin. Alright, specifically this lecture is about Hajj at-Tamattu' bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Now there's so much that can be said. It will take days, maybe weeks to go through all of the rites of Hajj. So to the best of my ability, as you guys can see on the screen here, I have tried to separate the things that I want to speak about and discuss into the following titles. So the first one is Al-Isti'dadu lil-Hajj, preparation for Hajj. What are those things, those crucial things that I advise myself and subsequently all of you to do in preparation for this tremendous act of worship? The second thing that I'm going to discuss is wujub al-Hajj, the obligation of Hajj, looking at some ayat from the Qur'an and some ahadith of the Rasul alayhi as-salatu was-salam as it relates to this tremendous obligation. Number three, maqasid al-Hajj, the goals and the objectives of al-Hajj. Number four, fadailu wa fawaid al-Hajj, what are some of the virtues and some of the benefits that we can take from this tremendous act of worship. Number five, and this is probably the most important and Allah knows best, arkan al-umrati wal-Hajj, the pillars of Umrah and Hajj. These are those things, ikhwani wa akhawati fillah, that they must be done. And if anybody were to forfeit, i.e. not carry out one of the pillars from the pillars of Umrah or Hajj, then his Hajj is null and void. So it's within all of our best interests to not only pay attention, but also do your own independent research to ensure that anything that either you don't understand today or you're not able to remember, that you make sure you fulfill these actions at the time of this blessed obligation. Number 6, I believe, wajibatul Hajj, those things which should be done or have to be done, but in the case that you don't do them for whatever reason, then you can compensate by performing a fidya, which is the sacrificial animal. And last but not least, those mahdhurat al-ihram, those prohibited acts that one must stay away from at all costs when they're in the state of al-ihram. طيب, preparation for Hajj. It's highly recommended for the one that is performing Hajj to, just before they're leaving of course, to remove all pubic hairs from the underneath the armpits and everywhere else on the body, and also to shorten the nails. This is because once you assume the state of ihram, these actions are no longer allowed. So if you don't do these things prior to becoming or prior to assuming the state of ihram, you're going to find the next couple of days very, very uncomfortable to say the least. Another thing, I haven't actually got it here, but I've got it on my computer, is to ensure that, to the best of your ability, any debts that you have are cleared. In the case that you have a debt and you're also going for Hajj, then I highly recommend you to go to the person who you owe the money to and, seek his permission to, do you mind if I, undertake this tremendous act of worship and I can deal with sorting out my debt when I return. It's very, very important that you don't have any debts prior to embarking on this pilgrimage of Hajj. The next one is, it's fantastic that everybody's here today to learn the rites of Hajj, but you also have to do your own independent research, as I alluded to previously, because there are just so many things to cover, so many things. Even if I were to try to, predict what may happen, the reality is nobody knows what's going to happen until we're actually there and experiencing these issues. So try to research. Obviously, have we got literature that we can give? We have literature, inshallah ta'ala, that will be given out nearer the time. The next one is try to the best of your ability, ikhwani wa akhawati fillah, to memorize as much of the du'as, the supplications at their specified times as you can. If you can't, for whatever reason, then you've got a book or a piece of paper, then that's absolutely fine. But so you can focus on, that whole spirituality of this tremendous act of worship, if you can remember what to say when you start the tawaf, if you can remember what to say once you reach the Yemeni corner, if you can remember the ayat from the Qur'an that you say once you make your way to As-Safa, if you can remember the dua that you say once you ascend on As-Safa, and subsequently you make those cycles between As-Safa wal Marwa, this is it's only going to aid you in the whole journey performing Hajj. The next thing I would advise is to try and purchase some type of pouch, a bag that you can have with you to keep your valuables in. I don't advise you to bring anything of value, to be honest, but if you do have to, like a wallet or a mobile phone, then ensure that you've got a safe place to put these things, inshallah ta'ala. And also, with regards to sleeping bags, do we need sleeping bags? Make sure you're prepared and you have your own sleeping bags, and obviously your toothpaste and toothbrush and everything else that you need moving forward, inshallah ta'ala. It's also advised that when the pilgrim boards the plane, that he or she, for that matter, should say the supplication of traveling. None of us know if we're even going to make it to the destination safely, much less if we're going to return back. So keep our tongues, I'm reminded to myself as well, that we should try to keep our tongues moist with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, as it relates to the obligation of Hajj, I don't have no doubt that anybody denies that Hajj is an obligation once in a lifetime for the person who is able to do so. But sometimes, as Allah tabarak wa ta'ala says in the Qur'an, that the reminder benefits the believer. So I'm going to quickly go through some ahadith and Quranic ayat as it relates to the obligation of al-Hajj. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He states in the Quran, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ عَنِ الْعَالَمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, and Hajj to the house, i.e. to the Kaaba, is a duty that mankind owes to Allah, i.e. is an obligation upon the Muslims, for those who are able to do so. And whoever disbelieves, i.e. disbelieves in the obligation of Hajj, then Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala is not in need of any of His creation. Also in the famous hadith collected by Imam Muslim on the authority of Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, قال بني الإسلام على خمس, that al-Islam was built upon 5 pillars. Shahadati and la ilaha illallah, the first of which is to bear witness that none has the right to be worshipped in truth except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and that Muhammad is the final slave and messenger of Allah. Wa iqamis salah, and to establish the prayer. What's intended here is the 5 daily prayers. Wa ita'iz zakat, and to give the zakat, which is 2.5 of your wealth, which has reached above the nisab, the threshold. Wa hajj al-bayti, or wal hajj, and that's to perform the pilgrimage. Wa sawmi ramadana, and to perform the fast of Ramadan. Also, on the authority of Abi Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, قال خطبنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم. Abu Hurairah, a tremendous companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam gave a sermon. He addressed us and he said, يا أيها الناس, O mankind, قد فرض الله عليكم الحج فحجوا. Indeed, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has made incumbent upon you the Hajj. So perform the Hajj. فَقَالَ رَجُلٌ, a man from among the people said, أَكُلَّ عَامٍ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, are we to perform the Hajj every single year, O Messenger of Allah? فَسَكَتَ, the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, he remained quiet. حَتَّى قَالَهَا ثَلَاثًا, this man repeated the same question 3 times. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لو قلت نعم, if I were to say to you yes, لوجبت, this action of Hajj would become an obligation. وَلَمَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ, and you will not be able to do so. This tremendous hadith goes to show the mercy that the Prophet ﷺ had on his ummah. Can you imagine for 1 minute if every single year all of us were required to make Hajj as a pillar of our faith? It would be tremendously difficult. And that's been collected by Imam Muslim. Also, as it relates to, and this is a very important point as well, تَعْجِيلُ الْعِبَادَةِ, hastening to perform worship. تَعْجِيلُ الْعِبَادَةِ سَبَبُ رِضْوَانِ اللَّهِ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى. In any aspect of our life, generally speaking, in terms of our, our religious obligations and our religious duties to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hastening to perform that act is going to cause the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إن الله تعالى قال حكاية عن موسى عليه السلام وعجلت إليك ربي لترضى. Musa says in the Qur'an in Surah Al-Taha, beautiful surah. He mentions in the Qur'an when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about the story of Musa and his people, that I have hastened to you, my Lord, such that you will be pleased. So the ulama, they take from this that if an individual has the ability, for example, al-Hajj now, if you have the wealth, you should hasten to carry out this tremendous act of worship and not delay it. In addition to, and I hurry towards you, my Lord, so that you may be pleased. In addition to that, we know that the best salah is that salah that's prayed on its time, in its time, at its correct time. إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, that indeed the prayer has been prescribed on the believers at fixed times. So رضا الله تبارك وتعالى في العجلة إلى أوامره, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it lies in hastening to perform his commands. And on that note, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by his best names and by his best attributes to accept, inshallah ta'ala, my Hajj and all of your Hajj bi-idhni Rabbina Azza wa Jal. The second thing, this is all about ta'jeel al-ibadah, the benefits of performing Hajj as soon as you're able to do so, is once a person fulfills the conditions by which Hajj is an obligation. And I'll mention the conditions for Hajj in a minute. The Prophet alayhi as-salatu wasalam said, ta'ajjalu fil hajji, hasten to perform Hajj, i.e. the Hajj which is an obligation upon you. فَإِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ لَا يَدْرِي مَا يَعْرِضُ لَهُ, that none of you know, and none of us know what may happen to prevent us from doing it. This hadith has been collected by Imam Ahmed and declared Hasan by Shaykh al-Albani. Now, from the conditions of performing Hajj, number one is al-Islam. Al-Islam is a condition for every single action to be accepted by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. The second condition is al-Aql. Having intellect, a sound mind, is another condition for the obligation of any act, be it Hajj, Salah, as-Sawm, as-Zakat. Number three, al-Bulugh, the attainment of puberty. Reaching puberty is when an action becomes of an obligation. So if anyone is bringing a child that is below the age of puberty, that child will be rewarded for the tremendous act of worship. But has that child now fulfilled the obligation of Hajj, which is an obligation on every single Muslim, male and female, at least once in a lifetime? The ulama say no. Why? Because al-Bulugh, puberty, or the attainment of puberty, is a condition from the conditions of al-Hajj. Number four, which doesn't really apply to anybody, or doesn't apply to anybody in our times now, is al-Hurriya, that you have to be free and not a slave. And number five, last but not least, al-Istita'a, being able or being capable to do so. And this point here is a very, very tremendous point, because nearly every single act of worship in al-Islam is contingent on one's ability to do so, except for one, and that is the prayer. And it goes to show the lofty status of the prayer in al-Islam. Every single action, fasting, is contingent on one's ability to do so. Al-Hajj is contingent on one's ability to do so. Al-Zakat is contingent on one's ability to do so. The only obligation that is not contingent on one's ability is the prayer. You have to pray no matter what your situation is, except if somebody's obviously majnoon, he's lost his aql, then it's been lifted. All right? But even inside the prayer, there is obviously some concessions. If you can't pray standing, then you're supposed to pray sitting. If you can't pray sitting, then you're supposed to pray lying down. Even though we have these concessions, the prayer is still an obligation. Now moving on to the maqasid al-hajj, the goals and the objectives of al-hajj. Firstly, ikhwani wa akhawati fillah, the greatest goal and the greatest obligation or objective, of hajj is to actualize and manifest at-tawheed. And as you all know, at-tawheed is the singling out of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His names and attributes, in His rububiyyah, in His lordship, and in His al-ibadah, in His worship, in His uluhiyyah. This is the greatest goal and the main objective of fulfilling the hajj. Number two, it's a tremendous opportunity, and we should all feel blessed and honored that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen us, inshallah ta'ala. We're not there yet, but inshallah ta'ala, Allah has chosen us to carry out this tremendous act of remembrance to Him, tabaraka wa ta'ala. Number three, the one performing hajj performs an accepted hajj. And that's obviously contingent on making sure you do those things that you're supposed to do and making sure that you stay away from those things that you're supposed to stay away from. Now the one that does this, inshallah ta'ala, he or she returns back from the pilgrimage just like the day his or her mother gave birth to him or her, i.e. free from sin. Fourthly, actualizing and manifesting brotherhood between the Muslims. If anybody has performed Hajj or even Umrah before, you know that number one, it's physically enduring. It's going to be a physical strain on the body. And as a result of going through and experiencing all these emotions, you know, sometimes we're going to be slightly short-tempered. Sometimes we're going to be hot and frustrated and bothered. We have to remember that we are doing this as an act of worship lillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala, and in doing so, it's a fantastic opportunity to actualize and manifest the brotherhood between us. Allahu tabaraka wa ta'ala yaqul, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ, that indeed the believers are brothers. So establishing this brotherhood between the Muslims and Islamic love during this huge gathering, and whilst fulfilling these tremendous acts of worship. And fifthly, the one performing Hajj should think about and reflect during this blessed journey about all of the signs and the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you're making those circuits around the Kaaba, research why we do it. What are those things that are recommended to say whilst you're doing it? When we're making the sa'i between As-Safa wal Marwa, think about the story. Be attentive with your heart. Why are we doing this act of worship? Don't just let it be a physical act that you're just doing and by the end of it you get tired. Understand the reason why these things were legislated. Anytime you get more knowledgeable in an act of worship that you have to do, the more meaningful the act's going to be. And it's as simple as that. The more ignorant we are, or the less we know about an action, the more it just feels like we're not connected spiritually. And this is probably, for most of us, the only time that we're going to get to go for Hajj, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So it's for that reason that we should try to the best of our ability to make the most of this tremendous opportunity. Now moving on to Fada'ilu wa Fawaidu al-Hajj, the virtues and the benefits of performing al-Hajj. Sorry guys, am I going too fast? Should I slow down a bit, or is it pace is okay? We're good? Jazeetum khayran. And عن جابر رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, it's probably the most famous hadith that we probably all memorized, الحج المبرور ليس له جزاء إلا الجنة متفق عليه. This hadith has been reported on the authority of Jabir ibn Abdullah. He said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that an accepted Hajj, or the reward for an accepted Hajj, is nothing less than paradise. And that's at the end of the day, ikhwani wa akhawati fillah, that's what we're all striving for. We might not be all striving to attain wealth in this dunya, or nice houses and nice cars and children. We might not all be united in that goal. But as it relates to this goal here, to enter the paradise, that's something that every single one of us, without exception, is striving to do. In addition to that, on the authority of Abu Hurairah, he said, سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول. Abu Hurairah, he said that I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say من حج فلم يرفث ولم يفسق رجع كيوم ولدته أمه متفق عليه. He said that whomsoever performs the Hajj and he neither engages in sexual relations, i.e. With one's spouse, of course, during the time when this act is going to be prohibited. We're going to see in a little while that there's a time whilst you're, during this journey where you come out of a state of ihram and those things which were previously permissible, like sexual relations, wearing normal clothes, applying perfume, become permissible. But during the time where you're in a state of ihram, one must stay away from sexual relations with one's wife, nor does he commit sins or dispute unjustly during his Hajj. Then he returns from Hajj as pure and free from sins as the day in which his mum gave birth to him. In addition, I didn't get to translate this, guys, in English because it was such a long hadith. This is on the authority of a companion by the name of Amr ibn As radiallahu anhu. He said that فَلَمَّا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ الْإِسْلَامَ فِي قَلْبِي. When Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala opened up my heart to al-Islam, i.e. he was a non-Muslim, alright, at one stage, he had no other desire than to kill the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Then once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened up his heart to al-Islam, he said, أَتَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فَقُلْتُ أُبْسُطْ بِيَمِينِكَ or أُبْسُطْ يَمِينَكَ لِأُبَايِعَكَ. He said to the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, extend your hand so that I can give you the pledge of allegiance. فَبَسَطَ يَمِينَهُ. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam extended his hand. قال, then his companion said, فَقَبَضْتُ يَدِي. He took his hand back. After telling the Prophet ﷺ to extend his hand, once the Prophet ﷺ did it, he took his hand back. فَقَالَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ مَا لَكَ يَا عَمَرُ. Why did you do that, O Amr? قال, Amr said, قُلْتُ أَرَدْتُ أَنْ أَشْتَرِطْ. He said, I wanted to place a condition on this pledge of allegiance that I'm about to give. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم تشترط بماذا? What do you want? What condition do you want to place on your pledge of allegiance? قلت, Amr said, أن يغفر لي, that I'm forgiven. I.e., once I give you this pledge of allegiance and I enter into al-Islam, this is conditional on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgiving me. Then the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said a fantastic statement, a tremendous statement. أما علمت أن الإسلام يهدم ما كان قبله وأن الهجرة تهدم ما كان قبلها وأن الحج يهدم ما كان قبله. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam replied to this companion and said, do you not know that al-Islam wipes out and eradicates that which was before it? I.e., once a person becomes a Muslim, his previous sins are forgiven. And that al-Hijrah, which is to migrate from the land of the non-Muslims to the land of the Muslims, lillahi tabarak wa ta'ala, also wipes out that which came before it. وَأَنَّ الْحَجَّ يَهْدِمُ مَا كَانَ قَبَلَهُ. And that al-Hajj also wipes out and eradicates that which is before it. And that hadith has been collected by Imam Muslim. Last but not least, Ikhwani, and this is more so for the women, Aisha, our mother Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she said, قلت يا رسول الله نرى الجهاد أفضل العمل. Aisha, she said, oh Messenger of Allah, we see that al-jihad, which is fighting in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be the best of actions. أفلا نجاهد? Can we not also participate in those military expeditions and fight alongside the men? فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم ولكن أفضل الجهاد حج مبرور. But the best jihad, and the context here is for women. The best jihad for women is an accepted Hajj, collected by Imam al-Bukhari. Now, Ikhwani wa akhawati fillah, we're going on to the pillars of Umrah and Hajj. Now, these pillars, like I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, are those things which need to be fulfilled, and you cannot compensate for a pillar. You cannot compensate if you miss a pillar by performing a sacrifice. So it's crucially important that we ensure that we fulfill these pillars. Now, as we're doing Hajj at-Tamattu', that involves the performance of Umrah, then coming out of al-Ihram, then coming back into Ihram for al-Hajj. Three of the pillars that we're going to cover for Umrah coincide with the pillars of Hajj, but Hajj has an additional pillar that Umrah doesn't have, and we're going to cover them now, inshallah ta'ala. The first and the most important is entering into a state of Ihram. Some people may think that by merely wearing the clothes of ihram renders one in a state of ihram, and that's not the case. Putting on the clothes is a very important aspect of al-ihram, but what puts a person into a state of ihram is being at the miqat, that location that the Prophet ﷺ specified, and making the intention, verbally announcing the intention to enter into the state of al-ihram. And verbally saying the intention is the only time that al-Islam permits one to verbally announce the intention. Any other act of worship you do, whether it be salah, zakat, psalm, you never ever verbalize your intention. But as it relates to umrah or hajj, this is the only time we do it. So as we're obviously going to be on a plane, when one passes over the miqat, and I'm assuming on the aeroplane, Tariq's gone, I'm assuming on the aeroplane we're going to be notified that we're passing the miqat right now, and it's about, say, 5 to 10 minutes before we land, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Anyway, take it from the people that are obviously on the plane, when they make the announcement, that's when you make the talbiyah, and you say, Labbaik Allahumma umratan mutamatti'an biha ila al-hajj. Oh Allah, I am here to perform umrah and then hajj. This is what's supposed to be said. If you can't memorize it, try to write it down, have it in the booklet, have it in the pamphlet. But the most important thing is that you say it at the correct time. By the way, guys, if there are any questions as and when I'm delivering this lecture, please feel free to interject. بإذن ta'ala. Number 2, the second pillar of Umrah and Al-Hajj is making a tawaf. This is the initial tawaf that you make upon entering Al-Masjid Al-Haram. The one who intends Hajj at-Tamattu', which is to perform Umrah and then Hajj. Alright, then is the key word here. It's not Umrah and Hajj in the same Ihram. It's Umrah and then you come out of Ihram by cutting your nails. By shaving your hair or cutting your hair. And then when it's time to get back into Ihram, you do it with the talbiyah of Hajj. This is why we say This is why when we come back here, it says, Allahumma, I am here to perform Umrah and then Hajj. Umrah is for the first act that we do. And then when we cut our hair, we come out and then we make the talbiyah for Hajj at a later date. In any case, the one who intends Hajj Tamattu', which is to perform Umrah, then Hajj, has to perform 2 separate tawafs. One for Umrah and one for Hajj. One for Umrah and one for Hajj. The first tawaf is when he arrives in Mecca, and the second is on the day of Eid, both commencing at the black stone. Both commencing at the black stone. After completing the tawaf, which is 7 cycles, if you like, or circuits of the Kaaba, the sunnah is the first 3 that you try to go, for men anyway, like a brisk jog. But the reality is, by the time we get there, and Allah knows best, it's going to be so packed that it's going to be impossible, near enough impossible, to do those first 3 circles fast. So if you're unable to do so, and it's outside of your capability, then you just walk as normal. Anyway, after completing the tawaf, 2 units of prayer are to be prayed behind the station of Ibrahim, called the Maqam Ibrahim, if it's easy to do so. Once again, we're going to be in the Masjid Al-Haram with how many millions of people. It may not be possible for you to stand in front of the Maqam because people may still be doing tawaf. If that's the case, don't harm people when they're trying to carry out this act of worship. The ulama say if you're unable to pray behind the station of Ibrahim, then anywhere in the masjid will suffice. As I say here, failing to do so, then anywhere in the masjid will be sufficient. In the first rak'ah of these 2 rak'ahs that we pray behind the Maqam Ibrahim, or anywhere in the masjid for that matter, it's from the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to recite Surah Al-Kafirun in the first rak'ah, and in the second rak'ah with Surah Al-Ikhlas. After one finishes that, it's from the sunnah to go and drink some zamzam, water, pour it over your head if you're able to do so. But it's not something that if you miss it, then you're going to have to compensate by sacrificing a sacrificial animal or anything of the like. The next important pillar is the sa'i. The sa'i, which is the walking between the 2 mountains. Then he makes his way to Mount Safa. Once he sees the mount, he commences with his worship and he begins to recite the verse in the Qur'an wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Safa wal Marwata min sha'a'ir Allah. Indeed, As-Safa, i.e. Mount Safa and Mount Marwa, are from the symbols, the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَمَنْ حَجَّ الْبَيْتِ أَوْ اعْتَمَرَ, whomsoever performs the pilgrimage to the Kaaba or performs Umrah, فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِ أَن يَطَّوَّفَ بِهِمَا, there's no sin upon him for him to make the circuits between Mount Safa wal Marwa. وَمَنْ تَطَوَّعَ خَيْرًا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ شَاكِرٌ عَلِيمٌ, and whomsoever chooses to do extra or more, then this is good, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is appreciative, all-knowing. Once one ascends the Mount As-Safa, and it's important that you start with As-Safa. Why? Because the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, he started with that. Once he ascends the mount, he should face the Qibla. He should also raise his hands and glorify and praise Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, and then say the following dua. I haven't written it in Arabic, but I'm sure with the leaflets or the books that you guys have probably got access to, you can get the Arabic inshallah ta'ala. But the English of it means, there is no deity worthy of worship in truth except Allah, alone having no partners. To him belongs all sovereignty and praise, and he is over all things omnipotent. None has the right to be worshipped except Allah. He fulfilled his promise, aided his slave, and single-handedly defeated his allies. Once you make this dua, then you go on to make any supplication that you want. Any supplication, anything that you want, now's the time to ask. Then this dua is repeated again, the dua that I just mentioned here, for a second time. And then you go on to make your supplication. And then this is done a third time. So you go back and you say this dua one more time, and then subsequently you make dua for whatever you want for a third time. Up until this point, when you reach this point, then there's nothing else for you to do except proceed to make your way to Mount Al-Marwa. Now, on the way to Al-Marwa, you're going to pass by, you're going to see two green lights. All right, you're going to see two green lights. The distance is not that far, maybe twice the size of this room, if that. And it's recommended for men. Again, it's contingent on one's ability to do so. If you're able to, briskly jog, then you make the brisk jog from the first green light to the second green light. Why do we do this? Because this is what the Prophet alayhi as-salatu wasalam did. If you're unable to do so because of the crowd, the overcrowding, then just walk. Women are not required to briskly walk. They maintain the same speed that they were walking from the Mount Safa until they make it to Mount Marwa. Anyway, let me read this. Then one descends from Mount As-Safa, making their way to Mount Al-Marwa. As he or she passes the section wherein there are two green lights, he increases the speed of his walking to a brisk jog, as the Prophet alayhi as-salatu wasalam used to do. This is providing one is able to do so. Then once he reaches the Mount of Al-Marwa, he should again face the Qibla, he should raise his hands, and this is from the etiquettes of making dua. Anytime we try to fulfill the etiquettes and the mannerisms of making dua, the more likely that dua is going to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we face the Qibla, we raise our hands, and then we say the dua that I mentioned previously, the dua that the Prophet alayhi salatu taught us to make. And then you commence with your own personal supplication. And we do this 3 times altogether. After the third time, so once you finish with your own personal dua, that cycle from As-Safa to Marwa is considered as one cycle. All right? And altogether we have to do 7 cycles. So you're going to start on As-Safa, you're going to go As-Safa, you're going to go to Al-Marwa, that's 1. Then you're going to go back to As-Safa, that's 2. And you're going to do exactly what you did on both of the mountains. You're going to do this a total of 7 times. Going from As-Safa to Al-Marwa is considered one of 7 cycles. When I say cycle, guys, it's not a cycle as like a circle. It's from one mount to the other. Then returning back to As-Safa from Al-Marwa is considered another cycle until 7 cycles are completed, ending at Mount Al-Marwa. There might be a question. I'm making tawaf around the Kaaba, and I know I'm supposed to do it 7 times, but I forgot which number am I on. Am I on number 3 or am I on number 4? Or you're making the sa'i, bayna Safa wal Marwa. Am I on number 5 or am I on number 6? The ulama is saying that al-yaqeen la yazulu bil-shak, that being certain about something does not, doubt does not invalidate something that you're certain about. So if you know that you've done 5 cycles and you doubt the 6th, what do? You keep it at 5 and then you redo the 6th if you need to redo it because you doubted it. Same with the tawaf. If you're making tawaf around the Kaaba and you forget, which can happen, which circuit you're on, and you know you've done 3 definitely, but you doubt the 4th, stick to 3 and then you continue with the rest of the act of worship. Is that clear so far, guys? Yeah? Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Okay, what happened there? Sorry. Allah al-Musta'an. طيب. Once the 7 cycles have been completed, one must either shorten or cut their hair. Now, for those of you that, or for all of us, sorry, for the men, my bad, for the men who are going to, after coming out of Ihram, we're going to go back into Ihram for Al-Hajj, then it doesn't make much sense to, completely shave your hair skin bald, because there's not much that's going to grow back before you have to cut it again for the Hajj. So here it's recommended just to shorten it for men, and for ladies, just to cut the endings of the hair, a portion of the end of the hair. One must shorten or cut their hair. At this point, a person is no longer in the state of al-ihram. And this is very, very important. He or she can now enjoy those things which were previously impermissible when they first assumed ihram at the miqat, when they were on the plane. So everything becomes permissible with the exception of sexual relations. Alright guys, that's the only thing that you can't, sorry guys. He or she can now enjoy those things which were previously impermissible to engage in whilst in ihram, i.e. sexual relations, perfume and wearing regular clothes. Later on, sexual relations is impermissible. And I'll clarify that when we get there, inshallah ta'ala. So let's quickly recap and take another look at the steps of Umrah. The first is, and the most important is, assuming the ihram from the miqat. Alright, and that's going to be on the plane 10 minutes, 15 minutes before we land. The second one is making tawaf upon arriving at the Kaaba. The third one is making the sa'i between as-Safa wal Marwa. And the last and final thing is shaving or shortening one's hair. And with that, one now leaves or exits the state of al-ihram.
Are there any things, certain rights for tawaf? You explained everything.
Are there any du'as?
Certain things that you have to do when you actually enter the...
For sure, there's definitely du'as.
When you enter the...
I don't know anything to say that you have to say upon entering the Kaaba or upon making the tawaf, except when you pass by the Yemeni corner, which is the corner just before the black stone. You make the dua, Allahumma atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar. Oh Allah, atina fid dunya hasana. Oh Allah, give us in this life, in this dunya, good. Wa fil akhirati hasana. And in the akhirah, good. Wa qina adhab an-nar. And protect us from the punishment of the fire. Other than that, you're free to recite Qur'an, you're free to make a dua. Once again, there may be other things that are recommended to say from the sunnah, but if we're speaking about something that you have to do, and if you don't do it, okay, I have to make up for it by compensating by making a sacrificial animal, then there's nothing that I'm aware of that has to be done. But one thing I do want to mention, and I'm glad that you mentioned that point, I'm not going to know everything that needs to be done for the Hajj or for the Umrah. I can give you the vast majority of what needs to be done. But the most important thing is that I do have the ability that if I don't know, that there are scholars that are going to be around or I've got access to, that we can always call. A person's not going to know, it's inconceivable that somebody's going to know everything what to do in every single situation, or he's going to remember every single sunnah or every single dua. The only thing we can do to the best of our ability is to prepare as much as we can. You with me, Akhi? Does that make sense? Excellent.
There's a lot of confusion as well.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, as it relates to the black stone, a lot of people, as we've seen on TV, and for anyone that's done Umrah or Hajj before, people go overboard in trying to kiss the black stone. All right, this is something that is merely, and I don't say merely in a derogatory way, I say merely in the sense that it's merely a sunnah, in the sense that you don't have to now harm people, start trampling and pushing and shoving and biting, to go and kiss the black stone, because your Hajj is not contingent on kissing the black stone. What's required for you to do is to make an ishara, if you're not obviously close to the black stone, which is to raise your hand, say Bismillah Wallahu Akbar, and proceed with your, Jazakallah khair for mentioning that, Akhi, I appreciate that, and to proceed with your cycles around the Kaaba. Does that answer the question? Jazakallahu khairan. So once again, you don't have to touch the black stone, nor do you have to kiss the black stone. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for you to do either, it's a blessing. If He doesn't, I was in Medina for maybe 8 years. I can't count the amount of times, walillahi alhamdu wa shukr, I performed Umrah. I've never ever been able to touch the black stone or kiss it. Ever. And I've done Umrah when it's not been that packed in comparison to Hajj. One thing I will say though, Ikhwan, especially for the sisters as well, that it may be that our intentions are to go for Hajj to perform this tremendous act of worship. But with great regret, that doesn't mean that everybody that comes to this blessed place is going to have the same intention. So you may have pickpocketers, or whatever the expression is, that may try to steal your valuables. Make sure you've got your things close to you. Men that are going with their women, protect your women folk. Protect your women folk. There are reports of people with depraved and disgusting tendencies. They go there to do horrible things, use this opportunity to do horrible things with women. Make sure and ensure that you protect your women folk at all time, and I can't stress that enough. Now, so moving on now to the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. The 8th of Dhul Hijjah is also known as Yawm al-Tarwiyah, the day of Tarwiyah. The one performing Hajj must once again assume Ihram. Why? Because remember, I mentioned after they've done the Umrah and they cut their hair, they've exited Al-Ihram. So everything that was permissible before, everything that was impermissible now becomes permissible. But on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, when you go into Ihram one more time, you have to, what you should do is from the Sunnah to perform Al-Ghusl, which is that ritual bath that we all know how to make. Also, you can apply for men only perfume, all right? And then you put on the clothes of Ihram, and then you make the Tarbiyah. Labayk Allah Hajjah. Oh Allah, I am here to perform Hajj. With that Talbiyah, now you've entered in the state of Al-Ihram. So that perfume that you applied to your beard or to your clothes prior to making that Talbiyah is fine. The issue is now making sure that you don't apply any more perfume, you don't cut your nails or cut your hair once you've actually made that Talbiyah. And then you make your way towards Mina. Now, we're going to be in Mina for the majority of the Hajj. Once we arrive in Mina, we should pray, or we should pray, not prayer, sorry guys. We should pray Al-Dhuhr as Rak'atan, 2 units. And Al-Asr also as 2 units. Maghrib as 3 units, and Al-Isha as 2 units, and then we're going to pray Fajr, obviously, as 2 units. Each of these salawat, whilst we have been given the concession to shorten them, we don't join them. We pray them at their appointed time. So at Dhuhr, we pray Dhuhr at the time of Dhuhr. Likewise for Asr, at the time of Asr, and for all of the other salawat. The only concession we have here is to shorten from 4 units to 2 units. These prayers are to be shortened, but should not be combined at Mina. Another thing, Ikhwan, I know I'm giving you a lot of information. A lot of it may go over some of your heads. Don't worry about it. Inshallah, that's the whole reason why I'm going to be there, to do reminders as and when we get to each of these landmarks, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Now, once the sun rises on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which, as you all know, is the day of Arafah, you begin to head towards Arafah. I'm sure Tariq and the team are going to explain exactly how we're going to get there, what times we're going to leave and stuff like that, exactly. But once the sun begins to decline, after the Zawal, you pray Al-Dhuhr and Asr, 2 units each at the time of Dhuhr. So you shorten and you combine. All right, this is on the day of Arafah. You shorten and you combine. Thereafter, you busy yourself and you engage yourself in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala up until Maghrib. Alright? Use this opportunity to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for anything that you want. And most importantly, to be spared from the fire and to be admitted into the paradise. Bi'idhni Rabbina Azza wa Jal. Now this is the last and the final pillar of the Hajj. Remember I said for Hajj and Umrah, there are 3 pillars that coincide with one another, but Hajj has an additional pillar, and this is the standing on the day of Arafah. The Prophet alayhi as-salatu wasalam qal, al-hajju Arafah, that the Hajj is Arafah. And what is intended by this is that this is the most important, the greatest pillar Because I just mentioned that there are other pillars to the Hajj. There's the assuming the ihram. There's the making the tawaf around the Kaaba. There's making the sa'i from as-Safa wal Marwa. And there's also standing on the day of Arafah. So it doesn't mean that if somebody comes to Saudi Arabia, then just goes to Arafah and makes dua, then goes back home, that he's made Hajj. La. But the Prophet ﷺ said this in order to emphasize how important this particular day is. And this is the greatest pillar of the Hajj. Whomsoever misses standing on the day of Arafah, then he has missed his Hajj. When the adhan is called at Fajr, which coincides with the day of Eid on the 10th, and he doesn't stand on Arafah, this individual is considered to have missed the Hajj. So let's recap those 4 pillars again. Number 1 is entering into the state of Ihram at the miqat. All right. Number 2 is making the tawaf upon entering the Kaaba, and this is your tawaf of Umrah. Number 3 is performing the sa'i, which is between as-Safa wal Marwa 7 times, and this is the sa'i of Umrah. And then number 4 is standing on the day of Arafah. And as I mentioned before, these 4 pillars that you can see on the board, on the TV screen, cannot be compensated by sacrificing a sacrificial animal. For example, if a person were to say, I'm not going to do a tawaf or the sa'i of Hajj, and I will simply compensate by sacrificing a sacrificial animal, then this person, that sacrifice will not be accepted from him, and his Hajj will not be complete. Or he says, I'm not going to stand on the day of Arafah, and I will simply compensate for it by sacrificing the animal. This also is not allowed. The only things that are allowed to be compensated for are the wajibat, those obligatory elements, those things that you have to do, but if you're unable to do it for whatever reason, then you can compensate by sacrificing an animal. And I'm sure, and Allah knows best, there are going to be so many, everyone's going to have a personal situation, or some people may have a personal situation that may arise. As and when those personal situations arise, then we can, contact the ulama, the scholars, and get religious verdicts accordingly, inshallah ta'ala. So as it relates to the obligatory duties of Hajj, once the sun sets on the day of Arafah, all right, once the sun sets on the day of Arafah, that's at the time of Maghrib, we then head towards a place called Muzdalifah. Why? Because this is what the Prophet ﷺ used to do. We pray Maghrib there, and we pray Isha by combining and shortening, meaning Maghrib is going to be 3 rak'at, and then Al-Isha is going to be 2 rak'at. Then we remain in Muzdalifah until we pray Fajr the next morning. Once we pray the Fajr the next morning, then we proceed and head towards Mina. Again, like I said, we're going to be spending the vast majority of our time in Mina. It is allowed for the case of those women who find it difficult, or maybe you have kids, or for the elderly, to leave Muzdalifah and head towards Mina before the Fajr Salah, because the Prophet ﷺ, he granted this concession to a group of women and old people at his time. If you're able to stay, then you stay. But if you have to go for whatever reason, or let's say you're a man and you're in charge of your women folk and they have to leave and you're the one that's like a delegate for them, then there's no problem in leaving before the Fajr prayer if you fear for any hardships that's going to come upon you. Once you arrive in Mina on the 10th, which is the day of Eid, all right, so now you've left Muzdalifah and now you're heading back towards Mina, which is going to be the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, and this is the day of Eid. You should hasten. Remember what I spoke about the excellence of hastening to do acts of worship. You should hasten to stone Jamratul Aqaba, which is the biggest Jamra. It's the biggest Jamra, and you stone it with 7 stones. With every stone you throw, you pronounce the takbir. So Allahu Akbar, and then you throw. Allahu Akbar, and then you throw. You do this a total of 7 times. Now, I'm sure some of you guys have probably seen on the Islam channel or on the internet, some people go OTT and they start taking off their shoes and, chairs and anything that they can do, thinking that if throwing the jamara, they're actually stoning the shaitan. The ulama, they reject this and say that that's not what's happened. That's not the case. You're not actually physically stoning the shaitan. And what you're supposed to do is pick pebbles of a reasonable, or stones of a reasonable size. You're not going to pick up any rocks, because if you try to throw it and it doesn't hit, there could be a catastrophe. Hit somebody in the head and, it's going to be a problem. So make sure the stones are a reasonable size. Al-Muhim, in any case, 7 stones, With every throw, you pronounce the takbir. Once you finish the stoning of Jamratul Aqaba on the 10th, which is the day of Eid, that's when the sacrifice should be carried out. Now, Sheikh Tariq, are the Hujjaj going to come to you to carry out the sacrifice? How does it work?
Okay, Bismillah. With regards to sacrifice, we will have a time arranged with the brothers at the slaughterhouse. They will allocate us time. So every group, the silver package, platinum, the gold package, will have an allocated time. We'll give you this time on the day of Arafat. It will be confirmed. So they will say to us, for example, that your sacrifices, for example, the silver package, your sacrifices will be done between 8:30 and 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So this is what will happen regarding the sacrifice.
And do we know roughly how much it costs?
£120.
£120.
But we'll discuss that in the logistics.
Jazit khaira. I'm going to kindly pass it on to Tariq.
Can we keep the questions to the Q&A sections, please? So we'll do it then, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Moving on swiftly. So once the sacrifice has been done, one should then shave his hair completely for extra rewards. The Prophet alayhi as-salatu wasalam, he supplicated 3 times for the man who shaves his hair completely. And the ulama, they mention that shaving one's hair completely is that shaving where it's skin bald, not just with like a normal shaver where you go to number 1 or number 0. Skin bald, like with a razor. And that's better for men, of course. However, if you simply want to shorten, I don't know, maybe you might be thinning on top and you don't want to, mess up what you've got left, then taking some off is sufficient. All right, taking some off is sufficient. But if you're able to skin it all the way down to the skin, then that's what's better, and that's what the Prophet. Those people are who the Prophet alayhi salatu salam made du'a for. Women only are required to shorten the ends of their hair. Now, this is what I was alluding to earlier on today. At this point, all of the prohibited acts that were previously impermissible now become allowed, with the exception of sexual relations. Sorry, Akhi, I'm so sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but Tariq requested that all questions are at the end. Is that okay? Yeah. Maybe write it down so you don't forget, inshallah ta'ala. So, as I said, at this point, once you've cut your hair, after performing the sacrifice, all of the prohibited acts that were previously impermissible now become permissible, meaning you can wear normal clothes, meaning you can apply perfume, with the exception of sexual relations. You are allowed to wear regular clothes and apply perfume. The next step is to make one's way to Mecca to perform what we call Tawaf al-Ifada, which is to making the Tawaf around the Kaaba and also going between al-Safa wal-Marwa 7 times each. And you do as you did for the first time when you was doing the Umrah. All right? This is the Tawaf and the Sa'i of Al-Hajj. The first Tawaf and the first Sa'i that we done was the Tawaf and the Sa'i of Umrah. All right? Because we're mutamatti', we do the Umrah first, we come out of the Umrah, and then we go back into Ihram for the Hajj. This Tawaf here, Tawaf al-Ifada, is the Tawaf of Sa'i, the Tawaf of Hajj and the Sa'i of Al-Hajj. Now, once this has been completed, a person has now fully exited the state of Ihram. If we were to ponder and reflect upon what the pilgrim has to do on the day of Eid, just to recap, they are as follows. Number 1, stoning of Jamratul Aqaba with 7 stones. With every single stone you throw, you pronounce the takbir. Number 2, you perform the sacrifice, as inshallah we're going to get more information about that shortly. Number 3, either shave or shorten the hair, and shaving completely bald, it is better. Number 4, we make the tawaf of Al-Hajj, and last but not least, number 5, we make the sa'i of Al-Hajj. The ulama, they mention that these should be carried out in this order. However, I have read some statements from the ulama that say, specifically Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that if one were to, do one before the other, then it's okay, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. However, if you want to just remain safe and play it safe, it's best to perform these actions in the order that has been outlined. Now, ikhwani wa akhawati fillah, all that remains is staying over in Mina on the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th. Now remember, we finished on the 10th. All right, we finished on the 10th. On the 11th now, on the 11th, once the sun starts to decline, so i.e. at the time of Adh-Dhuhr on the 11th, which is the day after we just finished doing the Tawaf al-Ifadah, you are to proceed, or we are to proceed to the 3 Jamarat and stone them after the Zawal. After the Zawal is just after Dhuhr comes in. As the sun starts to decline from its, the highest point or its midpoint, that's when it's permissible now to start stoning the 3 Jamarat. And this action should not be done before that point. Again, why? Because that's what the Prophet ﷺ did. You begin with the smallest Jamara and you throw 7 stones, pronouncing a takbir with every single stone thrown. So once you finish that act, you proceed slightly, i.e. you move forward slightly from the crowd, you face the Qibla, you raise your hands, and then you try to the best of your ability to stand for as long as you can, and you supplicate. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for anything that you want to ask Him for. Then after that, you move to the middle Jamara, and you do exactly the same as you did previously for the smallest Jamara. Finally, you head towards Jamratul Aqaba, which is the Jamra that you stoned a few days prior, and you then throw 7 stones, but you do not supplicate after it. All right? After you've thrown those 7 stones, you keep moving on and go back to Mina. The Jamarat are to be stoned on the 11th, as I just mentioned, also on the 12th. And for those who wish to stay until the 13th, then they should also stone the Jamarat after the Zawal. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يقول وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ فِي أَيَامٍ مَعْدُودَاتٍ. Remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in those specified days. فَمَنْ تَعَجَّلَ فِي يَوْمٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. Whosoever leaves, i.e. on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, he leaves from Mina and he goes to Mecca to do the Tawaf al-Wada', then there's no sin upon him. وَمَنْ تَأَخَّرَ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. And whomsoever remains and stays in Mina until the 13th, and then subsequently after the Zawal, he goes to the Jamarat and he does the stoning, as I mentioned, then these are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِمَنِ اتَّقَى. This is for those people who have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I highly, highly, highly encourage you, for those of you that are able to stay to the 13th, it's only 1 extra day, stay. Because none of us know if we're ever going to be afforded this opportunity to carry out this act of worship. It's going to be so easy to say, you know what, I don't have to do it, so I'm just going to go, inshallah, next time. But that could be from the shaitan as well. Strive, put yourself out, and just, put that extra effort in, such that when you come home, you're going to have no regrets, inshallah, tabarak wa ta'ala. Now, as I mentioned here, if a person chooses to leave Mina on the 12th, before Maghrib comes in, he must do so. If Maghrib comes in, and he optionally stayed, for whatever reason, he was talking, he was sleeping, Maghrib comes in, he has to now stay to the 13th and go. And do the stoning. If he proceeds to leave before Maghrib on the 12th, and then due to the traffic or due to something outside of his capabilities or his ability to prevent, he's still in Mina at that time, the ulama say it's fine, you can still go. Why? Because you didn't intentionally mean to stay. You actually tried to leave, but there was events outside of your capabilities that prevented you from doing so. Does that make sense, Ikhwani? Yeah? Is that clear? Well, alhamdulillah. The next act, and this is the last and final thing that we're going to be doing, is the farewell tawaf. The farewell tawaf. They call it tawaf al-wada'. Except for menstruating women and those experiencing postnatal bleeding, if they have already performed the tawaf al-ifadah, which happens on the day of Eid. So if you have already done that, if you're menstruating on that day, then that ritual or the act of performing tawaf al-wada' is dropped from you. In such a case, the farewell tawaf is dropped. This tawaf must be the last thing that is performed. Now, ever so slightly, how long have I got now, Afi? 4 minutes? 4, it's a bit precise, huh? 5, Jazakallah khair. The mahdhurat al-ihram, those prohibited acts of ihram, and I've just bullet pointed them ever so quickly. The first thing that we should make sure that we don't do once in a state of ihram is izalatu sha'r al-ra'si bihalqin aw ghayrihi. We must not remove any of our hair on our bodies, whether that intentionally. If you're stroking your beard and your hair comes out, unintentionally, that's different. But to remove any hair, cut your mustache, cut your hair, remove anything from your private areas, then this is something that shouldn't be done. If you do so, then you're going to have to compensate for that. Number 2, we shouldn't cut our nails. And this is why it's advantageous to do all of these things before you assume the state of ihram. Number 3, استعمال الطيب بعد الإحرام في ثوبه أو بدنه أو غيرهما. And this means the usage or using perfume on your garment, on your body, or in any other place. Stay away from using perfume once you've assumed the state of ihram. Alright guys? Marriage contracts are not allowed once you're in the state of ihram. And I believe last but not least, as you all know, al-jima', which is sexual intercourse. And I thank you, ikhwani wa akhwati fillah, for listening attentively. And I'm going to pass you on to Sheikh Ta'i.
Bismillah. Jazakallah khair, Brother Ismail, for that. MashaAllah, barakallah. Excellent presentation. So now we're going to start the Hajj Q&A. So brothers and sisters, for the sisters first, there's pen and papers at the back at the tea coffee station. So if you have any questions, sisters, please go to the back and write your questions down and leave the questions there and they will be brought to the front. So there's pen and papers at the back for sisters to write your questions down. Please, questions should only pertain to the Hajj or any Islamic questions that you may have pertaining to the Hajj and Umrah, please. Anything to do with logistics or anything else, we will deal with later on after lunch during the logistics Q&A. So if there's anyone who has a question from the brothers, we'll start with the brothers.
Well, we just...
We'll pass the mic.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
As the first time pilgrim, my question is, there's a lot of information that has been given out, and obviously it's going to be a bit difficult to remember everything. So is it possible that before any activity, we would be told what it is that needs to be said, what it is that needs to be done?
Excellent question. Should I answer? Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before during the talk, Akhi, there's so much information and there's more than that. I've made it concise. So as long as I'm with whatever group I'm with, I will be definitely reminding and also giving reminders along the journey as well. And once we come to each act of worship, if you're with me, or even if you're not with me directly doing the act of worship, before we, for example, get off and we go to the haram, I will be reminded, all right guys, this is what we're going to do now, this is what you should say, this is from the sunnah, etc. But what I would also say, Akhi, just to prepare for any eventualities, also do independent research as well, just in case. Anything could happen, we might not be together, all right, you might get lost, all right, so don't make it solely contingent on, oh, I need that tour guide. Yes, rely on us, but at the same time, also ensure that you've got like a pamphlet, just in case you may get lost and you have to, do a few of these rituals by yourself.
So just to add to that, there's a rucksack for everybody, which we will collect at the end of the seminar. And within there are a pocket Umrah guide and a pocket Hajj guide. Also, there'll be regular talks and reminders while we are out there in Makkah and Medina, inshallah. So there'll be regular reminders. So at every stage, there will be a talk, inshallah. Also, when we are there to perform the Umrah, for example, the guides, we are there, the group leaders. So we organize, if people want to go in a group, they will go with the group leader. So some brothers here, mashallah, and sisters, they've already done Umrah, so they're free to go because they've done it before, alhamdulillah. But those who are first timers, what we always do is every group, every package, there's always a group or two groups that are organized to go with the group leader or with the local help as well, inshallah. So you're not left alone to your own devices, alhamdulillah. Inshallah, we'll be there with you every step of the way, inshallah. And Brother Ismail, he'll be there covering all the packages, inshallah, alhamdulillah. So there's nothing to worry about there. Next question. Two questions. One, would you recommend or suggest that we took medical insurance out whilst we're out there, or before we get out there? And the second question is, the verbal intention that we make to put ourselves into a state of ihram, and also the other du'as that we make whilst we're performing Hajj, can it be said in English, or should it always be done in Arabic?
All right. What the last question is also one of the questions that the sister asked, and yes, du'as, they can be made in English.
No, when you're answering the question, could you just repeat the question?
Including the intention to go into ihram.
I can't hear. So just repeat the question. Okay, fine. So,
Okay, all right. Say the first question first.
switch the mic.
Okay, the first question is, the verbal intention that we have to make before we go into a state of ihram on the plane, I believe, and other du'as that we have to make whilst we're performing the Hajj or Umrah, can they be made in English?
All right, let's just stop that one because you had that 3 in 1. The question is the verbal intention that one has to make to come into the state of ihram, and also the du'as that we make at the various points. Is it permissible to say these du'as in English or not? Yes, they are. It's permissible to say in English or any other language for that matter. Second question? You said medical insurance.
Yes, would you recommend that we took medical insurance or not?
Okay, this is a logistics question, but I'll answer it now. From my understanding, generally, insurance is not permissible. Generally, insurance, because obviously you're paying for a service. There's no guarantee that you're going to use it, and this is why the ulama, and it's a general consensus amongst the ulama, it's a waste of your wealth because you're paying for something that you're not going to ever use, possibly not use. However, there are cases, for example, where you have to pay for insurance. For example, here in the UK, if you want to drive a car, which is a necessity for most people these days, you have to take out insurance. Otherwise, if you don't, we know what the repercussions will be. You end up in court, possibly prison. So, in that case, we'll more say take out the lowest form of insurance, where you pay the less. Okay, but generally, in terms of insurance, it's not permissible. So my advice is, don't do something which is not necessary. But further to that, Hilal Tours, we are part of Atoll, so we are covered. So you are covered, inshallah, alhamdulillah, in terms of anything that may happen with regards to your travel. In terms of your personal health, mashallah, alhamdulillah, the Saudi government, mashallah, they facilitate, alhamdulillah, for the Hujjaj. So there's medical centers everywhere, alhamdulillah, there's hospitals everywhere, mashallah, specifically for the Hujjaj, alhamdulillah. So
And they're free.
yeah, they're free, alhamdulillah. Services are free, alhamdulillah, mashallah. So alhamdulillah, mashallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to bless us all with good health, alhamdulillah, and keep us safe. So that's okay. Next question.
Can I quickly read one of these questions here?
Oh yeah.
It says, do we need to shorten our prayers during days in Mecca and Medina? The concession to shorten your prayers for a traveler is something that's well established in the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. But I would recommend that if you're in Mecca and you're in Medina and there's nothing preventing you from going to the masjid to carry out the 5 daily salawat, then I would say pray with the jama'ah so you can get the reward of praying together. When you say, do you need to me that sounds like, is it an obligation that you have to shorten and you're not allowed to, pray, dhuhr, 4 rak'at and stuff like that, then you don't need to. You have the concession to do so, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Do you mind if I just clear some of these questions?
Yeah.
Next question says, can the sisters trim their own hair in order to exit the state of ihram? Yeah, for sure, definitely. If you have some scissors with you, that's fine. The next one is, Tawaf al-Ifada can be performed on the 11th instead of the 10th. Do you recommend this? What I mentioned in the lecture today, and as far as my knowledge goes, that Tawaf al-Ifada, as you can see on the screen, that's to be performed on the day of Eid, which is the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. I don't know why one would want to delay it till the 11th. I don't know if it's even permissible. It's something that I would have to speak to a scholar to see is something of that nature allowed in the religion, inshallah ta'ala. If you take some questions.
Two
two questions. The first one is, if somebody comes and gives you a sob story, they lost X, Y, and Z, how would you deal with that? Somebody comes, I've lost my money, etc., etc. How would you deal with that person?
Are you asking me personally?
Yeah.
I mean, what are they asking for money as a result? They've lost it.
Basically, yeah, they've given you a sob story.
The question is, if somebody comes and gives you a sub story that they've lost their luggage or money or whatever the situation may be, and thus they're requesting money from you, what would you do? I'll say it depends how you feel, Akhi. If you feel generous that day and you've got some spare change, then at the end of the day, right, whether that, and it's the same in the UK, anywhere for that matter. If somebody comes, you never know if that person's telling the truth as to whether they're really needy or not. What I usually do is at the end of the day, whether that person's telling the truth or not, that's not my responsibility to know. Of course, none of us like to waste our wealth. The deed, whether that person's truthful or not, is going to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of being accepted and rewarded. So if you feel that this person is genuine, you don't feel like they're trying to give you a sub-story, and you have the ability to do so without infringing on your own self or your family or whatnot, then I'll say give what's easy for you to give. But if you feel that, you know what, this person seems a bit disingenuous and you don't want to give, then you've got the right not to give, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Are there any more questions from the floor before I go back to, I'll go on my right first and on the left.
It's on the mic, please. The mic.
I'll quickly, while the mic's going down there, this question says, in case of tawaf and sa'i, if I don't remember particular du'as, can I read I think it says, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً, I believe that's what it says. Then yeah, you can read any du'as. There's no specific du'as that you must read except on those places that I mentioned when you reach both mountains. So if you want to just keep reading this du'a as you're making tawaf, alhamdulillah, that's jade. If you want to recite Qur'an, then that's fantastic as well.
Can you do more than one umrah?
According to mine, the question is, are you allowed to perform more than one umrah? According to the ulama, the scholars that I've been exposed to, they say no. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. You got anything to add to that?
Yeah, okay. Are you referring to going to Masjid Aisha? Okay.
As far as I know, they say it's not to be done.
Okay, yeah. So it's not permissible because Masjid Aisha is not a miqat. The miqat are the stations around Saudi Arabia which you have to pass through where you make your intention, or you enter into the haram and make your intention. But Masjid Aisha is not one of these miqats. As we know from the Prophet ﷺ, from the hadith, when Masjid Aisha was with the Prophet, she entered into the menstruation cycle. So he sent her to that location to wait until she was clean, then she could come back and then partake in the Hajj. So that's the actual background to it. But what we find is over time, people have begun to use this as an excuse to go there and enter haram. Okay? But it's not permissible. And this is general consensus amongst the ulama. Jazakallah khair.
So one more question for you. So for the gents, when do we, what's your recommendation in terms of getting ready in Iran? Is it here before you take off, or Germany, or
tell him what
on the plane?
logistics will do with it.
Okay, Sheikh Tariq said that's a question to do with logistics, and he'll deal with that, inshallah ta'ala, when it comes to the logistics, inshallah. So, Akhi, there's a question over there. The question says, can you wear a face mask to protect from illnesses on the day of Hajj? Again, this is obviously a contemporary issue, and again, from what I've come across, that if somebody fears, illness and stuff like that, and they're wearing it at a time where they feel that there's going to be, more illnesses, it's like making a tawaf or the sa'i, then it's permissible, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Sorry. What are the best things you can do for relatives that have passed away during Hajj?
I just got to that question right now. Wait a second. The question says, what are the best things during Hajj that we can do for loved ones who have passed away? Without a shadow of a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, the best thing that you can do for anybody. Can you hear me now? I said, without a shadow of a doubt, the best thing that you can do for anybody, be they alive or if they've passed away, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon them, is to make dua for them. It's the best thing. The best thing. If it's your father or your mother, then maintain family ties. Treat their friends good. Give sadaqah on their behalf. Build a well on their behalf. Give some charity on their behalf. Any type of dua or any type of charity, which is a sadaqah jariyah, that will continue to cause the inhabitant of the grave to gain rewards, then it's all khayr. It's all fantastic. Any more questions from? Any more questions?
Mike. Assalamu alaikum. My question is that before wearing ihram, you are supposed to read 2 units of the salah. Is it a nafil or is it a sunnah? Or is it a must?
No, it's a sunnah. That's not from the obligatory, the pillars of the, like for example, if we were in, for example, if I was passing by the miqat, physically passing by the miqat, I'll get to the miqat, I'll have a shower, I will put my clothes of ihram on, then you can pray your 2 rak'at of sunnah, and then I'll make the talbiyah and proceed. But we're not doing that. We're going to be flying over the miqat on the plane. It's about 5-10 minutes before we land, right? Yeah, so it's something that if you don't do, if you're unable to do it for whatever reason, then there's no issue. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Quick question. It says, what or can you wear leather socks whilst doing tawaf or sa'i? Now, I don't know that that's permissible. I don't know that that's permissible, but I would feel more comfortable asking a sheikh. And I believe that we're going to be setting up some type of like a WhatsApp forum for questions like this that I'm unable to answer right now, and I can deliver the answer on the WhatsApp forum so everybody can benefit. Unless you've got anything to add to it. Leather socks whilst doing tawaf or sa'i.
No, you can't.
Yeah, like I said, to my
no, actually, while they're in the.
I think no, while they're in ihram.
While in ihram, yes, they can.
You sure?
Because of where footwear, isn't it?
But leather socks.
Yeah, we need to find out.
Yeah. Like I said, let me just double check and I'll get back to you guys. I don't want to give any. I'd rather say I don't know and find the correct answer rather than guessing. Anybody? Any more questions from the floor? There's a question here that says, I am performing Hajj for my father. What would be my intention when leaving the home? Again, it's not your intention as such when you're leaving the home. It's your intention that you make upon assuming ihram, which is going to happen on the plane. So whether you wear the clothes of ihram when you leave the house or you put the clothes of ihram on the plane, that's not what renders a person muhrim in a state of ihram. They have to do it on the plane. And as it relates to what to say, again, you will say that I'm going to, Allahumma, oh Allah, I am here to perform Umrah and then Hajj on behalf of, then you mention the person's name. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Na'am akhi.
Our group is going to Medina first, and when will be able to have?
I believe that's a logistic question. Are we going to Medina first and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's logistics, inshallah. You know the answer to this one is they can wear the socks, but the socks can't cover the ankle. The ankle has to be bare.
Okay, if you're sure, I'll say that. All right, pertaining to the question, can you wear leather shoes during the tawaf and the sa'i? Shaykh Tariq said that it's permissible as long as the leather socks does not come above the ankles. As long as the leather socks does not come across above the ankles. Where do we do the intention for Hajj in the gold package as we will be in Al-Medina? That's the logistics question again.
Yeah, okay. So that's on the way back. Okay.
So this question, it's a logistics one, but I'll answer it now, inshallah. So the group that's going to Medina first, you will obviously, when you go to Makkah, that's when you'll be preparing to do your Umrah. So obviously, when you leave Medina, you go to the Miqat, that's where you will make your intention, inshallah. But again, when you're there on the ground, inshallah, the talks and announcements, you'll be made aware of this, inshallah.
Any more questions? There's one.
My question is that how many stones to be collected in the Muzdalifah? Number of stones.
Okay, if you're going to do the, obviously you're going to do Jamrat al-Aqaba, then on the 11th you're going to stone the Jamrat 3 times. Sorry, the question is how many stones needs to be collected in, you said Muzdalifah. That's the question. If you're going to obviously stone Jamrat al-Aqaba, and then you're going to do on the 11th, stone the 3 Jamarat, then you do it on the 12th, and if you also do it on the 13th, 21, 21, 21 plus 7, I believe it works out to 70 altogether. Is that? 21, 21, 21?
70.
There's 70 stones altogether. But I don't know that you have to collect them in Muzdalifah. It's not a must that they collect it in Muzdalifah.
Yeah, you could collect in Mina as well.
Yeah, you've got the concession to collect it in Mina as well. No problem. But 70 altogether for those of us that are going to stay bi'idhnillahi ta'ala until the 13th of the Hijjah. Can you use an umbrella hat? Again, it's another contemporary issue, but from the research that I found is there's no problem in doing so. But again, I'm going to keep this question with me and I'm going to research it in more detail. Can we use sun lotion? According to my knowledge, you can use sun lotion. Do we have to remove gold jewelry for Hajj?
You know the answer to that?
Again, fantastic question, but I don't know the answer. I will, inshallah ta'ala.
Is there a way for me to contact these people? Is it the group going to be opened? The WhatsApp group?
Yeah, once you set it up, you can answer them.
Okay. Will I be setting it up? How am I going to get everyone's number?
We're going to provide that.
Okay, G. All right. Once the WhatsApp group opens, then I'll be able to answer these questions. Can we use toothpaste? Yes, you can. Can women have hair in a bun under hijab? Again, I don't know any prohibition that prohibits a woman to have their hair in a bun, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Having said that, ikhwani wa akhwati fillah, I'm going to keep this with me, and I'm going to research it, and I'll share those information in a WhatsApp group, inshallah ta'ala. Any more questions from the floor?
No, we have to call it.
Jazakumullahu khairan for your time. I really appreciate your listening attentively. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Bismillah. Now we're going to go straight into the medical advice, which will be provided by the group doctor, Dr. Shoaib.
Should I go sit down? Let's go.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I'm Dr. Ahmed Khair.
Put a mic close to you.
I'm Dr. Ahmed Khair. I'm a cardiologist and general physician working in NHS. My talk should be concise and to the point, but if any questions you can ask me later on.
Yep, that's fine.
First of all, I would like to stress that if you have any medical condition, you should go to your GP and if possible get a summary. They have. Can you hear me now? Okay. If you have any medical condition, go to your GP and take a summary chart. In this summary, they will mention when your disease was diagnosed and what regular medication you are on, and keep it safe with you all the time during your Hajj. It's important if you develop any medical problem there, the treating physician at least know what's your background and they can quickly start the treatment. For instance, if someone is diabetic and lose consciousness there, we know that he is diabetic and he is on these sort of medication and the most probable diagnosis is low sugar level, then we can immediately treat it. Or someone is having heart condition and that, or such as some brain condition, we immediately know and we can start the treatment. If you can't go to your GP due to any reason, simply on a simple piece of paper, write down your name, date of birth, and write down those conditions which you are suffering from. Secondly, list all of your routine medication with doses and frequency on that table, on that paper. Any allergic details, any allergy to medicine, any allergy to foods or stuff, you can write down there. One of the most important things is that you should take adequate amount of medications with you, especially your routine medication. Brother Umar also stressed earlier that it's very difficult to get prescribed medication from pharmacies there, and you need a prescription, and then you can get medication, especially routine medication out of emergency. And even you're able to get it, it will be very expensive. Okay. In summary, you should do all of your medication with you, and it should be in ample amount. For example, if you are going to there for 3 weeks, I will recommend at least 1 or 2 more weeks extra medicine with me. I will also suggest to take flu vaccination. I'm not sure what's about from religious point of view, but I will suggest to take flu vaccination, and it's also recommended by the website, which are giving the information for the area for Hajj. Flu is very common there, respiratory tract infections are very common, chest infections, and almost everyone suffers from these infections there. If you will get flu vaccination, there are chances you can lessen this burden. You can get flu vaccination either from your GP or any pharmacy. I will also suggest few behavioral interventions such as good hand hygiene after going to toilets or after eating the food. Wash your hand with soap. Wearing a face mask, which can prevent you from especially the air infections. Try to distance from those people which are suffering from cough or flu. And these measures can prevent you from the respiratory tract infection, the flu and these things, and also from the diarrhea illnesses. It may be possible some of you are suffering from lung problem, and I will strongly suggest to take extra inhalers with you. If your GP or your doctor prescribe some nebulization or these things, but please take nebulization with you, because when you will suffer from respiratory tract infection or the flu or the chest infection, your asthma, your lung problem can exacerbate, and it is possible that you need to go emergency and you can miss some important Hajj rituals. But if you have like these things in your hand, at least you can start some basic treatment. One of the other issues which you can face here is heat stroke. In August, I think with the temperature between 45 and 50, it's very, very hot there, especially those who are living in the United Kingdom. The weather is much milder here. To avoid heat stroke, I would suggest if you can use the umbrella, if you can use the shed, and especially if you can perform some rituals over the night, which are not mandatory to perform over the days during the daytime, it's better to go to the night time. But your ulama or sheikh can advise further which rituals can you perform over the night time. And if you suffer from any symptom which suggests for heat stroke, like you are suffering from high-grade fever, headache, vomiting, you can contact me there. I will be around, or you can seek medical advice from emergency. The people also suffering from the diarrhea there is still common there, but if you are suffering from this problem, you should take plenty of fluids, and you can get the dehydration sachets from over-the-counter pharmacy, and you can use it there. I will take antibiotics with me, like this common antibiotics, like if somebody is suffering from chest infection or suffering from diarrhea, I can provide antibiotics to those people. But if still the problem persists, then they need to go emergency there. The other issue is the skin infection, especially the people used to walk a lot of long distances there, and you can develop the skin infection, bacterial or fungal infection. I will suggest you to keep dry yourself, and especially if the cloth should be not tightened enough. It can cause skin bruises, and after that it can develop infection. Try to avoid that one. And if it happens, contact me, we can start some treatment. It is more important if someone is suffering from the diabetics. If someone is diabetic, the skin infection, they can get quick skin infections very quickly, especially in the feet, and it's difficult to treat. Another important issue is the head shape for men. People, it's mandatory to get the head shape, at least cutting the hair. Don't go for the barbers like on the street, which are not safe. The Saudi government guided for those the barbers which are licensed and which only use razor once for one particular person. And if they are reuse these things again, razors, you can get infections like HIV or like hepatitis B or C, and it could be problematic. The people who are suffering from cardiovascular conditions, called the heart conditions, they should be more careful. The statistics are showing that there is 64% admission in intensive care unit in Hajj days due to heart problem. And the medical admission is at the test between 46 to 66% people deaths are due to heart problems. And it is especially prevalent in those who have pre-existing heart disease. I will suggest those people to go to your GP first and ask them, we will do this certain amount of this is quite intense exercise there. They can prescribe you extra medication, especially the medication under your tongue. And if you suffer from any chest pain, anything, stop those things and contact me at the emergency service. Another medical condition which is very important, the diabetics. I will also suggest the diabetics can go to your GPs or the diabetic nurses or diabetic consultants and inform them we are going for this purpose. And if they need to tailor your medication according to your need, they can do now. Especially if someone is taking medication twice a day and they have to do extra exercise which we are not used to do, they may not that amount of medication at that particular time. They may need to reduce the medication. Secondly, I will suggest to take a diabetic kit with you where you can take your glucometer, where you can check your sugar or your doing things, and extra insulin syringes, which are very useful. And especially the sachets are something which we use for hypoglycemia and low sugar levels. Try to keep with you at that time. These are the important things which I need to mention. If any questions, you can ask me later. Anything you want to add?
Just regarding, I would just like to add, regarding brothers and sisters who are taking medication, please ensure that when we're travelling, that you have your medication in your hand luggage, and they don't pack it in your suitcases, and obviously they're going to be in cargo. So please remember this, very important. Make sure you've got enough medication for that particular part of the journey, and carry that with you at all times in your hand luggage. Very, very important. Okay, Jazakallah khair. MashaAllah, the lunch is nearly ready. I just want to remind everybody, at the back where the tea and coffee station is, on the left-hand side there's a notice board. On the notice board there's the room allocations for each package, so you can check your room allocation and just to make sure that it's right. So please everybody, especially the brothers who've got double rooms, because I know this year, mashallah, we've got a lot of families, mashallah, alhamdulillah. So we'd like everybody to make sure that during the break period, please check your room allocation and make sure it's correct. Especially the brothers and sisters who are in double rooms, just make sure, double check your room allocations are correct. Those are at the back. Also the flight details are at the back, mashallah, alhamdulillah. Also in the entrance there's a stall there where you can purchase your hirams and belts, and there's other books and other things that you can purchase, inshallah. So please visit that.
I just want to add one more thing. The simple medications like paracetamol or ibuprofen are simple dressings. I think everyone should purchase from Astra Tesco in ample amount. It's just a simple thing. You should be there.
So we're now going to break for lunch. So inshallah, it's a buffet. So brothers and sisters, just go to the buffet and choose whatever you wish. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. There's seating on the left here. There's also seating at the back. Along the back, there's also seating there. So we're going to have lunch first, and then we're going to pray Dhuhr, inshallah. Dhuhr is around about 1:13. So please have your lunch quickly. Then those of you who need to make wudu, please make wudu, and we'll prepare this area here. We'll clear the chairs to put the prayer mats down, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. We'll be praying about 1:13, bang on, inshallah. And straight after that, inshallah, we'll continue with the rest of the seminar. The seminar. Jazakallah khair.